Greetings and salutations. Unfortunately for you, I am back with another video, another gaming related video. It's been a while, right? So, I have, for quite a while, been trying to put together a group of rules using the rule Cyclopedia as a basis to have a sort of Swiss Army knife of everything I would want. And this was a little bit fast forwarded by the fact that, as much as I appreciate Drive Through RPG for giving us the opportunity to have something like this, as time has gone on, I felt some of the pages and some of the spine becoming looser in this. And so, really, aside from learning how to bind things myself and trying to seek to do a better job, the next best option, more cost effective option, would be, of course, a binder. And so the usefulness of that is a couple fold. Some of you might remember my basic fantasy RPG omnibus I created quite some time ago. This is very similar because as time has gone on, I'm not really going to be straying much from BECME for the rest of my gaming life, for lack of a better term. That's not to say I won't try other systems. That's not to say I won't try to run other rule sets. But by and large, whenever I finally had the opportunity to get a hold of something like this is the rule set that I fell in love with. And so that brings us to the omnibus itself. I have had the PDF for years, been wanting to put it together. Now, something you've probably noticed that this is pretty beefy compared to this, right? So, obviously, I've added some things into it. What in the world could I have added into this? Well, let me show you. So, obviously, first and foremost, this is the full entire scope of the book. This is all the pages of the Rule Cyclopedia. The only difference is that I opted to print in black and white. For the most part, doesn't really matter. Some of you will probably look at the maps though and be like, oh no, it's in black and white. But honestly, like if you were wanting to use the maps of the known world in the back, it's still easily usable. I recommend, if you're going to do something like this, getting a 2-inch spined binder with D rings. Here we go. Here's the maps, right? So the cool part about this too is that once I turn to the page I need, anyways, so something you've probably noticed is that this does lay flat. This is honestly one of the reasons why I prefer something that's put into a binder over using an actual book, is the fact that it lays totally flat on a surface. Now, of course, looking at some of the maps, like you're not going to have the color if you go the route that I did. Although, if you wanted to still use these maps, still usable. I mean, the only difference is that it would be, I haven't even really bothered to look for some of the capital cities on this, but I'd imagine they'd still stand out. I mean, look, there's volcanoes over here. They're still standing out over here at Rockholm. And it doesn't strain the eyes, honestly. And to be honest with you, the section of the game world and stuff over here, at the beginning of this chapter, like it even tells you the capitals and stuff like that, right? So it's not a big deal. What we go through, this is pretty familiar stuff to you guys, right? That's pretty much, I've printed the entire thing out. And that's the end of it. Now, this is where we get into the other parts of the omnibus. So, first and foremost, I recommend, if you're going to go the route that I did, there is the unofficial Dungeons and Dragons Rule Cyclopedia errata. Shout out to Wibbs Tosman, one of my players and a member of my Discord channel for quite a few years now, sharing this link with me. Very short document. Was published or put on the internet in 2002. It's only like 9 pages, and as the name suggests, it mostly clears up like a lot of mistakes, stuff like that. Look, when you write a book, there are going to be some things that escape the proofreading process. I mean, I have a couple of editions of The Lord of the Rings, for example, in which certain letters are transposed in a word that misspell the word. It's going to happen. It's something that people don't catch until years on down the road. So you're going to have mistakes, especially in uh, like a game rule set that's as beefy as the rule Cyclopedia to begin with. And so we come to that end. Now, this is a supplement that I found online. Now, it says part 2, but the page number is S1, supplement page 1. And what I think is, based upon my reading of this supplement, part 1 is the rule cyclopedia itself. And so this has some nifty little house rules and homebrews in it that pretty good little ideas. The first section deals with like divorcing player character race from character class. In case you don't want to play in Mastar, for example, you want to play in your own world or play something that's kind of more akin to a stripped down version of AD&D, this is a section that would be relevant to you, and honestly has been relevant at a couple of my tables. This, I will try to put links and stuff in my videos, but this was, out of everything that I have, this was one of the hardest things to find. I stumbled upon it at one point, and I bookmarked it and could not find it, but I finally found it. But not everything in this I would say I would ever use. I would probably use, for example, if I didn't want to play rules as written and wanted to divorce race from class and play kind of like a stripped down version of AD&D, I would use this section and maybe a few things in the back. But now, I also think part of this is also based on Labyrinth Lord, and the reason I say that is because if you look at the cleric experience table, level 1, they get a level 1 spell slot, which is not something that is in BECME or OD&D. A cleric did not get a spell level until level 2. They could still turn undead, but that was the beginning and end of it. It's a magic user. Okay, so just to show you, here's the cleric experience table, and of course there is no level 1. So I wouldn't mind. So that was one of the reasons why I said I think that is based off of Labyrinth Lord, because for those of you, especially some of you younger ones, whenever the OGL came out and people were recreating these retro clones to that's another part I want to talk about later, recreating these retro clones to kind of essentially bring these older editions up to modern audiences, there were some questions about what was considered copyright and intellectual property, and I think Dan Proctor did this just to kind of make sure that he couldn't be sued, because I think there was still a lot of it was a different time with not a lot of certainty behind it. Now, with things like Basic Fantasy RPG, which came around about the same time, I think it beat Labyrinth Lord by a couple of months, I think. It doesn't have that, it's more closer to Moldvay than Labyrinth Lord is on that point. So it just kind of proved that, yeah, you could totally get away with just straight up recreating everything. But so if you wanted to say use this with Labyrinth Lord, this would work out too. Although Labyrinth Lord Advanced Edition Companion exists, so I don't see the need unless you are using it more for. Although I haven't cracked it in a while, I don't think Avengers are in here, where Avengers are in this little supplement. Avengers are here, Assassins are here, Berserkers, Barbarians, I think. Barbarians here. I see Berserker. I don't see it. Okay, but Berserkers are in here. Okay, so like some additional stuff. Now you have a section on multi-classing, so if you decided you want to go that route, you can. There's some experience points add-ons for certain, for the demi-human races. If you divorce race from class, like how you can kind of keep things a little bit more balanced in terms of like having that more asymmetrical leveling system. I've seen a few things cover something close to that, and I think that this does an okay job on that. You have heroic alignment in this, which is like basically just kind of taking away the good and evil, more doing something more like a light, gray, and dark. I don't have a lot of. I probably wouldn't use this section honestly, because illusionists are included in this little supplement. They have a section with illusionists, and we'll cover this in a minute. So they have spell descriptions for illusionists, and then once you get to the back, towards the end, it has a chart for an alternative illusionist spell list, where if you wanted to use something more aligned with the advanced Dungeons and Dragons, you can, and like they're indicated by italics, and more on that here in a minute. So like you have the encounter in Dungeon Magic, like some of this stuff I likely will not use. You have this section, cleric orisons and magic user cantrips and stuff like that. We'll get to that here in a minute, but basically giving you a list of what you can go down. And we're going to get into the more esoteric and harder to find things that I had to go through just to kind of compile this. This took a lot of research and a lot of searching the internet to find until I got to a point where I felt like I had completed my little omnibus and made my Swiss Army knife, my personal version of Rule Cyclopedia for if I was stranded on a desert island. This would be it. This is my desert island book now. Because I've added some things in here just as options, like options for GMs and PCs, and like I said, all this stuff past even some of the stuff in the Rule Cyclopedia proper, totally optional. So like that's the beauty of BECME, is just how easy it is to tweak and hack and add and subtract, and it doesn't make everything fall apart. So we come to the end. Now we get to our next little part, where the alternate illusionist spell list. And to a lot of you old, true grognards in every sense of the word, this is indeed from the first edition of Dungeons and Dragons. This is the illusionist spell list that is covered by that one in the back, if you wanted to go that route. So I included this so that if somebody wanted to use something from first edition, they could, and it contains all of them. Now, I briefly mentioned cantrips. So, cantrips for magic users and illusionists. This wasn't too hard to find. Unearthed Arcana. That's where the first edition of Unearthed Arcana is where that was all covered. And so this section has the magic user cantrips. Has them all. And then we have the illusionist ones, which are, just like barely 2 pages. I don't think even 2 pages, because it goes straight to the first level with magic user spells. But what about the cantrips, the orisons for clerics and druids? That is a little harder. There was nothing officially released in an actual core rule book. We would have to turn to more obscure sources. Well, not so obscure, but they're still a little hard to find in this day and age. And so I turned to my research, and I found finally what I needed to. I printed both of these off in PDF form. So the first one, we had to search for Dragon Magazine number 108, released in April of 1986. And that's how we ended up with Cantrips for Clerics. Level 0 magic for deities to dish out. It's not very many, but here are the options that were covered in this supplement. That's where I found them, was over here. It took me a long time to find this. So I found it, and I printed it off, and that was it. And it covers all that. So I wonder if any of that information is still relevant. I highly doubt it. How about this? Do you guys think we could still write in for an article? I doubt it. Now, the most obscure one, the one that was the hardest for me to find, was another Dragon Magazine issue, but for Druid cantrips. And this one was much more difficult to find in comparison to this one. We needed to find Dragon Magazine number 119, released in March of 1987, and I found it. And like the cleric page, just one page. Wonder if that's still around. I highly doubt it. But so there was the orisons, the cantrips for the druids and for the clerics. And so with that, I had my core rules that if I wanted to run rules as written, I 100% could, with no fluff, no stuff, just going, and I had everything that I needed. If I had somebody that says, I'm just not a big fan of playing racist class or whatever, well, I had found an option for that with this basic D&D supplement that I don't know who wrote it. I don't know where it came from. Not a clue. The website itself was pretty obscure. I will share that in the comments. That's the only thing I can think of. But in terms of everything else, finding the errata is pretty easy. Even if Wibbs Tosbin, sorry Brian, I keep murdering that. Even if he hadn't sent this to me, this is still pretty easy to find with a basic Google search. And so if you wanted that, that's not too hard to find. Same as, look, Royal Cyclopedia, you can find it anywhere through legitimate and less legitimate sources. So let's put it that way. However you want to do that. The links for all this stuff, like the first edition and the Unearthed Arcana, was not hard. With the Dragon Magazine stuff, all you really need to remember is 108 and 119. And then just try to comb through some Google searches. It's the only thing I know to tell you. But this was quite a bit of research, quite a bit of work. And by the end of it, I had created what I thought was my own perfect little omnibus, complete with, again, if all I wanted to do was run this, that was here. If my players were wanting to do something a little different, well, I want to play a dwarf cleric, or I want to play an elf druid, we could do that. It's here. If you wanted to have cantrips, I will say this, I've never had a session or a player group ever quit, whether I included cantrips or not. That was never a deal breaker. I think most people, when they know they're going to be playing this, they know what they're getting in for. So the idea of cantrips and all that never really mattered that much, and most of the cantrips are really not that awful useful to begin with. But if we wanted them, we could have them. So, and then the inclusion of an illusionist with, and if you wanted to play a first edition illusionist, but in like a Beck Me style, there it was. It was a lot. It was a labor of something that I could finally, even though it's not my own, it's different from what everybody else has. Although you might have something similar to this, but with different stuff in it. For example, this has a lot to do with second edition. So you may or may not have used second edition instead. For example, this came out right when second edition came out. Because, the basic line was starting to, like a lot of things with TSR, everything was starting to kind of come to the end of its lifespan, unfortunately. But thank goodness we live in this day and age where it never truly died. There may not ever be official product lines associated with this ever again, but that's the cool thing about Dungeons and Dragons in general, is that you can create and keep that alive. And even to some of you kids that are like running 5e or whatever, the day may come where 5e will be in the same level of old school, nobody plays it anymore kind of style of retro, right? Well, it never truly dies if you make stuff for it and find people willing to play it. It will never die. And so I had finally created my own rulebook that, while I didn't write anything in this, I compiled a lot of stuff to where I felt like I could call it my rulebook, so to speak. And it'll be the one that I pull at tables from here on out. But you've listened to me ramble for close to half an hour. As always, guys, take care. God bless. And I'll see you on the other side. Bye-bye.